E.D. Cope is a massive specimen of Tyrannosaurus rex excavated in 1999. You may have seen my earlier video on this subject, but insight from paleontologists has shed new light on this titan among tyrants. Sometimes, scientists make mistakes. I make mistakes. When I first learned about Cope's numbers, I had to wonder why its proportions were so strange. It had the widest femur recorded of any theropod at 630mm, but it was also shorter than Scotty's at 1300mm. Was the width a typo? Was Cope even big, or had the 2022 study containing its measurements simply made an error? Since I knew the universe wasn't going to drop the answer into my lap, I reached out to the experts. I had a very productive conversation with Peter Larson, the paleontologist who described and measured Cope in the first place, and received his permission to share Cope's true measurements. As it turned out, Cope's femur may be slightly shorter than initially reported. Larson used a measurement technique that encompasses most but not all of the femur, which may explain the discrepancy. However, Larson told me that the PAL 2022 study got their measurements from him, and he wasn't sure why they were different. We'll go with the conservative 1270mm for now. But the record-breaking femur width was correct, and Cope's tibia was also by far the biggest recorded for a rex at 1230mm. He also let me know that although the maxilla wasn't in the best condition, it was at least bigger than Stan's. We don't know by how much. Maxilla scaling isn't a great way to establish size, since individual variation goes crazy with skull bones and T.rex, but it at least supports Cope being a giant. The limb bones are where it's at. So, what does this actually mean? Was Cope a short but buff bulldog of an individual? Buff, yes. Short, no. Its tibia and fibula were so long that even with a short femur, it was taller than Scotty, as well as more robust. The height difference, assuming that Cope's feet weren't abnormally large as well, is pretty small, but its hip height would be just shy of 4 meters. So its proportions suggest that it was more built for speed than other adult rexes. I ran its numbers through Larramendi's speed formula, assuming its metatarsals were similar to Sue's since that was the measurement I had, and arrived at 23 kilometers an hour, about 14.4 miles per hour. That's fast enough to catch most normal sprinting humans and marginally faster than other adults of its species. Perhaps it specialized in the fast hadrosaurs like Edmontosaurus, with a slight edge that its more cursorial build would give it in ambushes. Edmontosaurus was still far faster in a sprint, but Cope was more likely to catch them by surprise. While you're here, scan the QR code to see an augmented reality life-size version of Cope, and subscribe so he doesn't eat you. What about overall size? Given that Larramendi said that femur length was better while Campione and Evans said femur circumference was better, I went with both. Femoral volume is the best way to go since it accounts for both measurements. I pretended that its femur was a cylinder and calculated its volume compared to other Tyrannosaurus specimens. As it turned out, MOR 1125 and Scotty had the closest femur ratio to Cope, and that resulted in between 11.5 and 11.68 tons. Interestingly, MOR 1125 is the only confirmed adult female Tyrannosaurus, which raises some interesting questions for Cope as well. After double-checking the measurements with Larson, it seems like approximately 11 to 12 tons is the best range for Cope. While you can get lower or higher, ranging from 9 tons with femur length to 13 tons with tibia length, this is using the most comprehensive method, scaling from the specimens with the most similar proportions. An alternate hypothesis for Cope's proportions has been raised by independent researcher Dr. Tarbtino, who analyzed proportions of femur length, circumference, and volume of multiple large rex specimens to see how strange Cope truly was. Adjusting its incredible width and short length to create a femur of average proportions would land its femur in the same range as Sue and Scotty. This follows the idea that distortion is to blame for the femur's overall build rather than inherent biological ratios. This graph was created with a disclaimer that Larson did state that the femur did not show signs of distortion, but it is a thought worth mentioning. Assuming that Cope's femur was the same dimensions as Scotty's, accounting for its extraordinarily large tibia would indicate a T.rex with a weight-bearing leg bone length of over 2.56 meters, compared to Scotty's 2.47. Isometric scaling from that length based on equivalent volume increases and measurement techniques would indicate an 11.74 ton mass, actually increasing overall size estimates from femoral volume. Of course, these are just estimates. New data about Cope could lower or increase the numbers, but based on the information given to me, 11 to 12 tons is a realistic range for now, with 11.5 to 11.74 being the most mathematically supported. As always, I'll keep you all updated. Essentially, Cope was most likely a massive rex, and may have been one of the fastest. This monster, along with G-Rex, Scotty, Sue, Bertha, Trix, and possibly Celeste, indicate that T-Rex adults over 10 tons weren't that uncommon. I look forward to more information about these animals, and I owe a big thank you to Peter Larson, Scott Hartman, and Asier Larramendi for helping with the research for this video. I am also stoked beyond belief for the Bertha paper. You'll know where to find comprehensive coverage of it right here on Vividen, Paleontology Evolved. Shout out to the amazing Ivano Borghi, who created the 3D animations of Cope for this video. There's a link to his art station in the description. Subscribe to stay updated on paleontology news and analysis, and share this video with your friends if you think a giant T-Rex is cool. Please join the channel so I can continue to spend time researching these videos, plus you'll get perks and shoutouts. I'm the Vividen, and I'll see you next time.